Before the birth control pill, women had little control over their bodies and education regarding sex and the right to choose when to have children. The pill brought an expansion of knowledge as well as an easier transition between real life and parenthood. With this came more feminine power in the workplace and more organized and prepared families. Margaret Sanger desired change. With her force came a multitude of movements and powerful voices behind her. She was the driving force for the birth control pill. She knew women's rights were not where they should be in history. And with this, she created a savior for many women in the form of a little capsule.
But I think that it was not a question of marriage at all. There was a certain satisfaction in doing something that was going to alleviate the sufferings of women in particular, and I was quite a feminist at the time.
Obviously.
And yes, and I naturally didn't want to see women take all the suffering of childbearing and of pregnancies. So.
Before the pill, it was desirable to be a virgin at marriage. After all, the United States was most religious immediately after the Second World War. People desired some form of purity. The idea was that if a woman was to have any understanding of sexuality before marriage, she was not someone who should be hung around with. She was promiscuous and immoral. By this logic, around half of all American women were practically pariahs, as they had all had sex before marriage. However, it was in the 1950s that women all wanted to get married. It just happened at a younger age in this decade. If women were to have sex, then they could get pregnant, which was only allowed if you were married. The idea of birth control was considered satanic. Threats that would set terror in young girls' minds were common presentation choices of priests. No matter how many women disagreed, the intimidation level was so high, no one dared use contraception. Women were expected to go from absolute abstinence to a completely expanded mind regarding sex. This transition from girlhood to married life was remarkably fast. The difference between genders was that men were socially allowed to fool around. Love and affection were admired. However, the moment ideas went too far, girls were shamed. The pill created a choice to express these emotions the human way, and a choice to take control over their bodies.
I don't think it necessarily made them more likely. I think young women who were promiscuous were more comfortable without worrying about becoming pregnant when they could take the pill. But for many of us, it was simply a way to give us a little more control over our life. I took it for a long time after I was married to your grandfather. It let us control our careers and where our career was going because we weren't interrupted with an unexpected pregnancy. So I don't know that it made people more promiscuous. It certainly made people more in control.
Birth control promoted exactly what its name suggests, control of birth and pregnancy. Because of this, women could control their social lives, whereas before the pill, they were often stuck at home with baby before they wanted to be, if they ever wanted to be. The pill and the increase of sexual education following its invention gave women the knowledge and tools to prevent unwanted pregnancy and stay hip and young until the time they chose. This also gave women time to find work and create a stable home life.
Well, it gave me control over family planning. But since I went on the pill at about the same time that AIDS was becoming an issue, it didn't grant me the dating freedom that I might have wished for. Not really controversial at all. There were some health concerns for women who smoked and for long-term use, but that's all I remember. We had pretty thorough sex ed in school, some of my more memorable junior high classes. When I was in school in the 70s, parents and schools seemed to be pretty open to sharing the discussion. The main messages that I got were, 1, do not get pregnant, your parents will kill you. And 2, sex must be pretty important, so we're thinking about and preparing for, but not always doing, because refer back to number 1.
The biggest difference between the 1950s and 60s and the 1970s and 80s was the increase of sexual education. The availability of the pill created a more liberal mood when it came to the topic of sex, which meant parents and teachers were more open to discussion. With more sexual education came more understanding of the process of sex among, specifically, high schoolers. Because of the increased understanding of sex and the availability of the pill, the U.S. birth rate dropped from 24.1 in 1950 to 14.8 in 1975 to 13.8 in 2009. The pill allowed for discussion of the human body, specifically the reproductive organs. Without this knowledge, pregnancy rates were much higher due to misconceptions and lack of accurate information. Was the society around you growing up comfortable talking about sex and things that had to do with it?
I think so, yeah, for sure. We were pretty open, schools were pretty open about it. And my family in particular was a little bit more strict as far as the messages that they wanted us to be wholesome and waiting until you were married and all that. But as far as discussing it...
What did your access to the pill do for your career and your career options?
If I did not have the pill, that would have been 10 years of my life where it would have just been like a shot in the dark. I mean, at any point I could have not finished college, my relationship with my husband could have probably been not what it is now. We never would have gotten married if we were dating and this happened. And I probably wouldn't have had work experience under my belt or any time to save to buy a house or any of that. I mean, you never know when you're not using something.
You specifically did most of your birth control on. Do you think that had anything to do with certain decisions you made regarding it and with your relationships and your control over your body? Do you think the 2000s had?
Yeah, it was such a wide open time, and especially right around when I started taking it around 98, 99, and then all through up till I had my first daughter in 2008, so it was a good 10 years. It was very open, and it was easy to come by. I think it was was it Bill Clinton during his administration, right when I was coming out of high school and going into college. It was everywhere. You could get it for free at UConn. They would give you samples. My doctor would give us samples for free. So, I was 18 or 19 at the time, but it was just here you go, open access to. That's a really good option. It just gives girls, especially the type of people that are looking, anyone. I mean, everybody should have access to it, but if you're looking to really plan out your life and you're you know what, I don't want to do this until 10 years from now when I'm settled and I can afford it, why not offer that option? I think that generation it was a good time to be at that age because it was very easy to come across.
Birth control pills are the #1 form of contraception in the United States. Every year, doctors write about 75 million prescriptions.
The shifts in attitude from before the pill up to today proved tremendous. The birth control pill changed the modern woman. Before the invention of the pill, a woman had little control over her body as to when she became pregnant. Her only option was absolute abstinence, which as sexual human beings can be difficult. She then had to give up her career dreams to take care of her family. Without the existence of the pill, the simple idea of a woman having a career was out of the question. She was demanded by society to be a mother. The pill allowed women to follow their dreams and put off parenthood until the time they saw fit for their own individual lives. This change that accompanied the birth control pill also prompted an increase of sexual education, which benefited both males and females, especially of a younger generation. The birth control pill was a revolution because it changed the way people prepared for their lives. By providing girls with the pill and an open mind, they can be more safe and conscious of themselves. The pill ultimately changed the lifestyle of women everywhere by giving them the power over their bodies.